Welcome to our podcast, Living by the Mantras. We are so excited. I'm calling Susie your host, and this is
Brian Souza,
your co-host and general partner in crime. And we are here to chat with you about the ideas that come from my book, Living by the Mantras, Common Sense Wisdom for an Extraordinary Life. And we are currently in a series on respect. And it's the entire Living by the Mantra series is really about identifying ways to continually, with mantras, repetitive phrases, tie ourselves to the core values that we want in all of our lives that represent us, so that we can go into the world and make our lives extraordinary and everybody else's. So we are on respect. And in our last episode, we talked about how we kind of defined respect and why self-respect was important.
So important.
But this time we're going to talk about respectfully leading. So we can lead a lot of different, what are all the kinds of places we can be leaders? What are some places we can be leaders?
You can be leaders in your home. You can be leaders in your marriage. You can be leaders in your relationships. You can be leaders in your business.
Or in your job.
In your job. You can be a janitor, but be the most important person in the entire business or campus. You can lead by example.
You can lead by being a coach. You can lead by simply being a mentor. There are so many places in life where we can take on a position of leadership. And when we do, we have to think about how we show up, how we present ourselves in that role. So today is really just about the fact that respect is the foundation of good leadership, because we have to have it, as we shared last time, for ourselves, but we also have to have it for those that we work with. And sometimes that means that are under us. Sometimes that means that are our peers. But nonetheless, we have to show up with respect on our minds and in our activities and in our actions and in our words, if we want to be a truly effective leader. And I'm going to pass the baton to Brian, because he has broken down some important parts of respect.
Yeah, remember last episode we talked about how respect is earned. And I was reflecting back on a book that I read about literally over a decade ago by John Maxwell. And the name of that book, the title is The 5 Levels of Leadership. They're proven steps to maximize your potential. When you think about respect, you think about leadership, and those two go hand in hand. So the first is position leadership, also called positional leadership. This would be people that have a title, right? Either a manager or a director or a captain or some kind of title that they have. Can you think of other examples, Colleen?
Well, yeah, I mean, we have them in our political world. We have them in our athletic world. We have them all over the place. Even the words mom and dad, those are position power. And it's got to be, just because you have that power doesn't mean people are going to respect you.
Exactly. So, I mean, we talked about how we were born in the 60s and grew up in the 70s in the last episode. And a good example for us would be, as we were kids, mom and dad just said, because I said so, right? That was their parenting technique, because I said so. And that is the reason we had to respect them, right?
Well, they definitely,
because they were mom or dad.
They definitely sometimes had some position power. But how many times as a kid, or I can think of some jobs I had, some administrators.
As a manager said so.
Some administrators I had in the world of education who loved their position power.
Yeah.
And it was often frustrating when they tried to kind of lord that over the rest of us, because they could. Yeah. And they didn't necessarily have our respect, but when they turned around and walked away, there was a lot of this going on. And that's an unfortunate and not healthy place to be.
It could even be a CEO of a company that says they have vision and they think they're all that in a bag of chips, but no one respects them.
Not really.
Yeah.
No.
So that's one level. Another level might be permission. This would be people follow you because they want to, and they built on relationships and likability. So can you think of some examples of permission leadership or permission respect?
I'm going to jump back to my years as a school teacher. You often had that kid that everyone wanted to gravitate around.
Yep.
And that's a really good example of permission leadership. Mm-hmm. That person had whatever it was. Go back. I don't care if you're 70 years old, you can always remember there was that one guy, that one gal that just sort of everyone gravitated around and
People
everyone
like
wanted.
you because they
And
want to.
even in your professional life, I mean, I can remember in different jobs I've had in different positions where there was the person that, hey, but did you hear what so and so said? And their opinions seemed to matter a little bit more, and they had the pull of the group. But what does it take to get that pull?
But it takes mutual respect, right? Because mutual respect is earned, and that permission power is a form of leadership that it may not even be the top dog in the organization. It could be the person that everybody goes to just to bounce ideas off of because they have some wisdom. Maybe they have a lot of experience, or maybe they see things that you don't.
Well, it's interesting. I was a guest on a podcast earlier this morning for, if you take a listen to some of our other stuff. Brian and I have owned a real estate company, and together, I've been on board for about 16 years. He's been doing it for well over 20. But I had the opportunity to have a discussion with the Ohio Board of Realtors on their podcast this morning. And
Ohio as in the state?
Ohio? As in the state of Ohio,
oh,
yeah.
Nice.
And so one of the conversation pieces we were having about business leadership with the mantras in mind is they were saying, does it matter if somebody is the most capable or the most talented versus the hardest worker? And I think it comes back down to this with permission power. What Brian was just saying, maybe that's the person everyone goes to because they just seem the wisest. I always think there's that person that people go to and respect because they're what they call the gimper. The phrase being a gimper means putting in that extra touch, putting in that extra
little bit of
that
effort.
extra little something. And I share lots of stories. I do it in my book of people we all know that weren't the sharpest tool in the shed, or potentially were not like they're talented, they're good at what they do, they enjoy what they do. They weren't necessarily the very, very top of the heap, but what they were was tenacious, respectful, and hardworking. And I think that that's a really good example. People want to follow that person. People like that person of permission power.
Yeah.
I really think so.
The next level would be level 3, and that's the production power. And that's when people follow you due to your results and contributions to the team or to the organization. And the first example that I can give is, I thought it was a big deal when I got the Hall of Fame award, and we were in Vegas together, and I'm walking around with a little medal, and I thought, oh, I'm big stuff because I got this Hall of Fame. And then I see this guy who's got, and if you can't see my hands, it's like 10 times the size of the medal. And I instantly respected him because I'm asking him, how did you earn that? Oh, I'm number 3 in the world of sales. Okay, so my little Hall of Fame award in my little Central Valley of California now meant really nothing compared to being number 3 in the world, because this guy instantly had production power in my mind. Give me an example.
That's excellent. I mean, in the world of authors, I'm very steeped in it right now because my book just came out a handful of months ago, and I'm in the process of making sure everybody sees it all the time. And I'm paying attention to other authors who are literally kind of in my same category or along the same lines, because I follow them for their wisdom, and I like to see what they're doing. And some of them, they have the following because they have the production power. They've been at it a little longer. Their books have sold more. And so where do the eyeballs go? They have that automatic respect because they produce more. So,
yeah,
there is definitely that aspect of respecting people for that kind of power.
Level 4 is people development. And people follow you because what you've invested in their growth. And you can think this is where coaches really come into play, right? Mm-hmm. Nice job. You did a great job on this, and you need to improve in these areas. And you're really looking at that person's growth. And for us and our agents, you do that all the time. You did a great job here, but you need to improve here. Can you think of other examples?
Well, I think the respect we get from our kids. I'm going to go back to parenting a ton. Not a day goes by where one of my kids, if not 2 of them, they touch base with mom. Dad tries not to feel left out sometimes. If the kids are listening, sorry, reach out to your dad a little more. But they have a respect for me as their mom that causes them to, they know I've mentored them. They have a tough day. One of my daughters did today, and she got on the phone with me and was really quiet. And I said, what's up? She goes, I think I just needed to hear your voice today. I don't really have anything to say to you. I feel like life sucks today. And so what she needed was to connect to that person she respects that gives her that respect and encouragement back. Because over the years, I've developed that. And I think as parents, when our kids are at home with us, or really, there's not a lot of stuff out there to teach you how to be a good parent to your adult children. What I'm learning is a lot of those same key strategies, like respect, those values are still there. And I respectfully just listened to what she had to say and let her dump it all out on the phone and then offer some encouragement, because I know she'll get past this hump, but today just felt heavy. And so she came to me because I offer that leadership to her.
And touching back on what we said on the previous episode, for those young parents that have those kids that are under the age of 10, or heaven forbid, they're between 10 and 15, the teenage years, and disrespect is kind of flying around left and right.
What happens out of their pores?
So it happens over the decades from 10 to 20 and then 20 to 30. Parents all of a sudden become wiser in the minds of those children. Isn't that interesting?
In some ways, yes. Yeah. In some ways, we're just so stuck in the past. But in other ways, we absolutely, they see the wisdom of the things that you've done. Yeah. So hold on, that's a good idea.
Level 4 of people development. And so level 5 is the pinnacle. This is the top. This is people follow you out of a deep respect for who you are and what you represent, your character. So think of some examples of where that's applicable.
I can think of lots of examples. I mean, I'm going to default to complimenting my husband again, because and he hates it when I do this kind of thing, but people gravitate toward his leadership in the business world that we live in. He is so highly respected. We happened to have a big anniversary party last year for our 35th. And when we had that, it was we threw a shebang. I mean, we thought 35 was a good number to do that for. And we had a big dinner party in our backyard with the tent and the lights and people and the microphone. And
people.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. But some of the words that were spoken that night still resonate in my heart about Brian. And that is some of our business associates we invited that we've become friends with over the years. And one of them in particular was discussing the fact that when he first started working with Brian 15 years ago, as a loan officer, people would say, "Oh, you know, you're gonna do a transaction with Brian Souza. He's a tough one. He won't let you go an inch. He'll stay on it the whole time." But what that friend had to say to Brian on the night of our 35th anniversary is, "Thank you," because what I could count on was that you would never overstep boundaries, that you would respect everyone you were working with, that you would show integrity in the transaction, and I wouldn't want to work with anybody else. And that compliment of that is that particular loan officer used us to sell his home when there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of agents to
respect
choose
is
from.
100% mutual.
And that kind of respect, I think of you when I hear that, because you have drawn to yourself definitely people who follow you, listen to you, lean on you, because you have been absolutely respectful and integral.
Thank you, babe.
You're welcome.
I think one of the things that you need to do, and when I say you, I mean all of us, I'm not pointing a finger at anybody other than me in the mirror, is you need to think about the idea that exists in Atomic Habits. If you haven't read that book, I highly recommend you read it. And it's the idea of getting 1% better every single day.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, I look for, and we all should be looking for, people that are above us in whatever field or endeavor we're trying to accomplish. So, for example, Jensen, who is who is the creator of NVIDIA. If you're not familiar with that, it's a chip manufacturer. And he was recently on an interview where he talked about how he started from humble beginnings, and he still does things that he wouldn't ask anybody else to do. For example, he said, "I clean toilets." This is a multi-billionaire that says, "I'm going to clean toilets," or "I'll do dishes." Why? Because he's not going to ask other people to do things he wouldn't ask his own self to do. He's going to lead by example, being a servant leader. So keep in mind that we're not talking about top-down leadership. We're talking about being a servant leader, talking about these 5 levels: position, permission, production, people, and pinnacle. Those positions of leadership all embody respect at different levels. And we need to lead by example as we do that.
And I think to reach that pinnacle, let's talk a little bit about what is involved in reaching that pinnacle level of respect, where people just want to follow you, that people respect you because you've been respectful back to them. And I last episode we talked about the importance of being an active listener.
Absolutely.
And I think that that's a piece of it. I mean, and I don't think it can be mentioned enough, because when we talk about how we train the next generation, which is our next episode, we're going to talk about that again, because we need to listen to we need to listen to the people that we're training. But it's important to be a listener, because everybody's got a story and everybody has a situation. And that does not mean that you listen to them whine and grovel and never hold them accountable, but you start by listening. You listen to their ideas. Someone has a great idea. You take a moment to listen to it.
I want to comment on active listening for a second. So Colleen mentions active listening in a way that you probably may or may not have heard that term before. So active listening, make sure you have eye contact with the person that you're talking with.
Absolutely.
Right? And if you're not talking, if you're doing the listening, if you're doing the active listening, engage by nodding, agreeing, maybe questioning at a time, lean your head to the side. Let them realize you're not on your phone listening, because it's called half listening. It's not active listening.
Multitasking.
Put the phone
It's
down.
a lie.
Right? If you are a type of person that needs to see things, and maybe take out a piece of paper and say, as you talk, I'm going to take notes that just kind of stick out to me and keep going. And that way it allows you to kind of keep your train of thought. Because a lot of the times when people are talking, you want to interrupt. Right?
We never do that with each other. I don't know if you're listening to this, you definitely didn't see it, but even if you're watching this, there was a look in his eye.
Yeah.
We tend to interrupt one another, and it doesn't go one way. We interrupt each other all the time, and that note taking is important. The other thing is occasional paraphrasing, because
really
if
good.
I understood what you were saying, if I heard you
Repeating
correctly,
back, yeah.
you're repeating back, because that shows the person you did hear their words.
Mhm.
And that's super important. And
Asking a question, maybe another way, for a clarification question.
and moving on down that list, to be the pinnacle, beyond being an active listener, you really need to show integrity. Now, integrity is doing and saying what you're going to do and say. So if you say you're going to show up at a certain time, you show up at a certain time. And if for some reason you can't, you communicate that. If you say you're going to get a job done, you get a job done.
Yes.
And I think far too often in our modern, very busy, very digital society, we can do a lot of smoke screening and, I'll get to that, or that, we had to postpone that, or come up with some excuse for either not getting a task done in our job, or not showing up for our kids, or not getting something done, even when it's for our own personal self.
Yeah.
It's okay. We'll just do that tomorrow. And so we don't have integrity, and you had something to share with integrity.
Yeah, so I wanted to point out what Colleen was just saying is that sometimes we say things we don't mean. I'll get to that. Or the common phrase in today's world is, I'm just so busy, which is kind of a default for, I didn't really get to it, and I will get to it at some point in the future. If you can't get to it, say, I'm sorry, I can't get to it. That's a full no. That's okay. I will get to it tomorrow, or I will get to it next week. I'm working on these things. The I'm too busy is really not a default answer, because when you want a job done, you give it to busy people. You look at the people truly that are high performers, the kids, for example, that are in high school, that are on a sports team, that are getting the straight A's, they're involved in their clubs and athletic programs, that are involved in music, that are doing all the things, and you give them one more thing to do, they'll do it with no problem. And the kid that's not involved in anything, they're like, I'm too busy with whatever, and their video game, and they didn't get to their idea.
Well,
so
we have a joke, because our youngest is in her last semester of her junior year. We're already rolling her up to being a senior at Arizona State. And she's had good semesters and bad semesters, and that's part of growing up and adulting. But we love to remind her that a good grace is a busy grace.
Yes.
And that has been proven over time. She's shown us that when she was young and involved in athletics and whatever, and kept straight A's. And now she's got a job. She's going to school. She's a officer in one of the clubs. She's in a sorority, and her grades are great, and her social life is great. And we're seeing a busy grace as a good grace. So it's really important to remember that.
Yeah, give yourself a deadline. If you can't get to it today, that's fine.
Well,
I'm too busy, so maybe you can say I can get it this day. Will that work?
That ties into my next thing that makes you one of the pinnacles, because we talked about being an active listener, showing integrity. Showing a respect for time, I think, is a huge, important
100%.
part of being that kind of a leader. And that is, if you say a meeting's going to go so long, that's how long the meeting goes. If you say a meeting's going to start at a certain time, start it. Let the people that show up late be the victim of their own mismanagement of time, or / okay, I'm sorry, they had a situation, find a way to give them the notes later. Mm-hmm. It's super important to respect the time of others because they will respect your time.
Yeah.
Time is that single commodity we can't get back.
And it goes back to what Colleen was saying previously as far as boundaries and kind of having that line in the sand by setting time parameters is really important to automatically set
Well,
boundaries.
time is, we can lose money and earn more money. Okay, we can't lose weight and put it all back on. we can't lose time and gain it back. Once it's past us, it's past us, and that's okay. There's times to waste time. There's times to not worry about what your production or productivity or whatever. But the bottom line is, it's a valuable commodity, and you have to plan how you're going to use it, respect it for yourself, and respect it for others. Here's another one that I think makes you a pinnacle. Being a servant. And you kind of mentioned this in the story.
Servant leadership, yeah.
Talk about servant leadership. Why is that valuable?
Leading by example is so important because it shows others that you're not just demanding something because you want something out of them, or you want their personal growth. Coaching example, this is how you kick the ball, or this is how you catch the ball, or this is how you run a play. That's a really, really good example. In management, if you're looking to do a certain task or skill, lead by example, show them exactly how it's done, and then let them and empower them so they can actually perform at their personal best. And if they need additional skills or training, give them what they need and then let them go and let them run on their own accord.
And I think another way to do that too is if there is, you can do this, it can be in an office, it can be in a household. Put yourself as the leader on the rotation. And by that, I mean, like, maybe in your household, there is a person who does the dishes. There is after a meal, or there's a person who sets the table. I'm picking tasks that might be for small kids down the road, because by the time they were teenagers, I expected my kids to help with the laundry. I expected my kids to vacuum and be responsible and have jobs that helped our home function. You be on the same rotation. This week, you're doing all the vacuuming.
So for our example, for our marriage, it's like if Colleen cooks the dinner, I'm doing the dishes.
Well,
right?
There's that. But I'm saying when you're leading your children, if you have a rotation that you set up of jobs that need to be done, you could rotate it around, but you just know that one of those weeks, mom's on vacuum too. And everybody gets a week off while everybody else works. I mean, that's just an example. And in the office, it could be a rotation of who gets the coffee, make sure it's made in the morning. It could be who, you have a rotation of who brings snacks. I mean, and there could be other jobs. There could be bulletin boards that need to be put up. There could be any number of things. The bottom line is, put yourself in a place where you, even though you're the boss or you're the leader or the manager, you take your turn, because you're showing that I respect you enough to be a part of this. And that's really super important.
Keep in mind, we're to put you in a role of training, right? So you're going to show things, how things are done the right way or the way you want them done. And if they didn't quite get it the first time or the second time, then just keep that training, maybe train from a different perspective that you didn't do the first time, right? Because people learn in different ways.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think the biggest point in kind of wrapping up our little episode here, talking about how to lead with respect, is that we will cultivate loyalty 100%. If we are respectfully leading. Yeah. And I think, there's no other way to say it. I think we could, what I would do, I like to wrap up every session with a challenge. And I want to, to define loyalty and how leading with loyalty, I would ask you to reflect. Everyone can think of a person they've worked for, or a person that has been their friend, or that kind of leads something, right back down to your own childhood, where you had an undying loyalty to somebody because of the level of respect they showed in your life. Think of a leader in your life. Was it a teacher? Was it a coach? Was it one of your parents? Was it someone you worked with, a manager, etc.?
And come alongside Colleen here and continue that challenge. Remember that our couple of key points is that you want to lead by example, that respect is mutual, and the highest level of leadership and respect is that relationship.
And so what I was going to say is, when you identify that loyal, it's very easy. We talk about this all the time. It's very easy to flop to the negative. You can think of the person you disrespected because they didn't treat you. So flip that around. Think of that person that you show loyalty to, And then I want you to jot down what they do that makes you feel so loyal to them. I want you to jot down what they do that makes you inspires you to want to respect them back, show them your due regard, and then figure out how you can begin to use those same skills in your own life.
Absolutely.
Challenge you with that this week, because I think what you're going to discover is very quickly, you can become that pinnacle, not just a position leader, but you can become a leader that
everybody respects,
brings people to you because of those quality.
What was today's mantra?
What
was today's mantra?
Well, today's mantra is leave it better than you found it.
Leave it better than you found it.
Because that is the overall one in our household that means show respect. But what do we always say, my dear?
Well, so that's our mantra. Leave it better than you found it, meaning respect. But what's your mantra? So create your own.
Yeah, the most important thing is to find a way to put respect in your life. And if you like ours, steal it. If not, come up with a way that every time you hear the words, you remind yourself, I'm going to show respect today.
Absolutely.
Okay? So if you are enjoying our podcast and you're watching us on YouTube, then you can like and subscribe. If you are listening to us on one of those famous, fabulous Apple or Spotify or one of those places,
share this episode with somebody.
Share this episode. Download it. Make comments. Tell us ways that you found this week that, you know, why inside you found the characteristics to be a better leader. We would love it. You can click on the links that we leave below to find out more about my book, Living by the Mantras. It's full of these stories and great ideas. Absolutely. And the links to our podcasts and all the other things.
And make a comment on any of those. I don't know where you've seen that leadership in action and respect really shines.
And so until we see you next time, what's your mantra?
What's your mantra?
Welcome to our podcast, Living by the Mantras.
It's great to be here.
I'm your host, Colleen Suzat, and I have
Brian Souza here
as your co-host. And we are so excited to dig a little deeper into the book that I wrote called Living by the Mantras, Common Sense Wisdom for an Extraordinary Life. And the book is broken down into statements, mantras, silly things that we said in our household and I said in my classroom that we've used in our business to help remind us of common core values that are so critical. They're common sense, but they're just not that common anymore. And so today we're going to dig into one that we used in our household. It was leave it better than you found it. And that leave it better than you found it mantra meant what?
Great principle. Absolutely. Leave it better than you found it. It's self-explanatory. It's respect.
Thank you. I knew it was going to come out. I'm like, come on, buddy. Punchline. It's respect. We're going to talk about respect. And for the next few episodes, we're going to dig deep because respect is so core, critical to human understanding, to humans getting along, to the world being a more peaceful place. Yet we need to redefine it because I think there's a lack of it. So we're going to talk about that. So what is respect? Respect is defined as admiration, due regard, showing the respect for an individual, for their work, for their efforts, for their property. It's showing them admiration and it's giving them attention. So that's the definition of respect.
I think another way to do this.
Give another way to do it.
Another way to do this is if you can't really frame what respect is, it's really easy. What is disrespect? Boom. You can easily identify, oh, that person looked at me wrong. Or that person didn't talk to me right. Can you believe what that person said to me? Oh my gosh, I can't believe what that person just texted me, posted, whatever. You can identify disrespect immediately in today's world. And so that gives you a framework to say the opposite. And that leads you towards understanding what respect truly is.
That's a really great way to define it. Yeah, because often our human nature is to default to the negative instead of looking at the positive. And that's really true. I'm going to start off with what you were saying. I have a feeling you're going to agree with me on this one, but in general, I feel as though individual human beings of the world are displaying less respect.
Just a little bit more disrespect going around these days.
Okay, I think we're seeing a lot more disrespect.
I agree with that.
That value is being lost. Why do you think that is?
Well, I think one big, huge reason the whole world can identify is COVID. You know, COVID shut down everything. It shut down not only, you know, people and family and businesses and churches and things like that, but it also shut down human interaction. Everything became virtual. And so, you know, when we were growing up, Colleen, you know, we were born in the 60s and grew up in the 70s. You got outside, you played, you interacted with each other, and that's what happened. And one interesting thing is that stopped happening during COVID. So people interacted online with their phones, with their computers, with the Zoom calls that's more natural, which really there's a component of it that's a little bit natural. At least to see facial expressions, but still loses a bit of the humanity when you're around people, right? I might disagree with you have to say. And in
He never
person,
does that, by the way, ever.
occasionally,
Ever
once in a
disagrees
while.
with anything I say.
But in person, you are a lot more, what's the word, balanced, a lot more etiquette oriented. You're a lot more wanting to make sure that you create a win-win solution. Whereas online, we have found in the last 5 years or so, a lot of that etiquette's been lost. A lot of that is just my opinion is right, and I'm going to write it, and I'm going to text it, and those kinds of things.
Well, and I think that there's a point to that. And one of the reasons for that, one of the very valid reasons for that is when we are in proximity to another person, we all emit energy, and our energy is shared with one
Energy
another.
is real. It is
And
absolutely
so
real. Yeah.
you're going to be respectful, and you're going to be able to read the energy you're getting from somebody else. Therefore, you're going to respond in kind, or you're more likely to respond in kind, and you're more likely to even hold your tongue, because it's harder to be unkind to a person with the energy around you when you're face to face. And that unkindness is part of the disrespect.
I 100%
And so
agree with
I
that.
think that there's definitely that piece of us going, because post-COVID, we spent the last 2 mornings at a workshop, a training, and it was 100% digital. The group of people, there were a couple thousand of us from all over the nation. And I appreciated the opportunity to not spend a whole bunch of money to fly to this workshop. But at the same time, every experience was different because we weren't in person. But on top of the COVID piece, I'm going to throw out there, let's talk about the impact that something like social media and texting and that kind of ritual has had on respect.
Yeah, so here's the key principle. You know, respect is earned. It can't be demanded. So respect is earned. It can't be demanded. So you have to realize that there's a mutual connection with respect. If I respect you, you respect me. If I disrespect you, what's going to happen?
Most likely, I'm going to shut you down and disrespect you back.
Exactly.
Whether I do it silently or with my own snide remark,
And so online and texting and things like that, if you lead in a fashion that is disrespectful and you're surprised that you're getting disrespect back,
I'm simply shocked.
Maybe you need to lead by example, because remember, respect is earned.
And I think there's such a value in that. And I think that we have to understand, depends, I mean, I know there are multiple demographics and age groups potentially listening and watching the podcast. So if you are of that more wise, we'll call it older generation, you're going to remember back to the days. And as we went through our youth, you know, as Brian shared, that we were born in the late 60s and grew up in the 70s, and we were out there doing stupid things before the lights came on that made our signal that it was time to go home for dinner kind of thing. With that being said, we were constantly interacting. And so if we decided to be a bully or disrespect, that got solved before we ever got home most of the time, because somebody got mad, someone threw a fit. If you were boys, you threw a punch and then you got over it. Whatever happened, we resolved those, and we learned to respect through that interaction. We have a whole 2 generations now, and we have the 3rd one coming. So
I mean, even our phones had umbilical cords, right? And they were in the kitchen with the umbilical cord attached to the wall. And so if our parents heard us disrespecting our friends,
because we all had to listen to each other's
we weren't in
conversations.
some room FaceTiming them or texting them or whatever. It was out in the open. It was like, no, you don't talk to people that way.
Right. Well, and I was going to say, if you study all these generations, we've had the millennials go through, and because we have 2 that are on the young end of millennials, you know, it was
In their 30s.
It was the emerging technology, but there was still that texting and all the emailing, and it's become a part of their adult lives because we have our fabulous little blessing of Gracie, who is just 21 years old soon. She grew up more Gen Z for sure.
Absolutely.
But she's never not experienced immersive technology. I mean, I share in the book that I haven't, when she was home with us, she's now off on her own. I would walk into a room and I'd always ask the question, who am I in here with? Who am I in here with? Because if I was just waking up in the morning and schlumping to the coffee pot in my slippers, was I with one of her best friends, or was I with one of
Because Grace had her phone on FaceTime
all the time?
all the time.
Well, and she
on
used
Wi-Fi for hours.
Yeah, but she would use it to relate and communicate with her older brother and sister who lived away at college.
Yep.
And one of her best friends, but I would ask that question because I didn't want to walk behind the camera, looking in my morning best if I didn't know who was in the room, right? So that kind of immersive technology, and now we have the Gen Alphas who are mid-elementary school years heading into junior high or wherever that cutoff is. They all have spent so much time this way and in the screen, and less time out there interacting and learning that respect before they came home to the dinner table, that it is a challenge because it's not going to instantly convert when they put their phone down and are suddenly looking at their teacher, or they put their phone down and are looking at their parents or other people. They're going to not have
We
those
are not
skills.
against technology. Let me get that out there right now. We are not. So our kids lived overseas. So our son lived in Spain. Our daughter lived in Italy. Our son moved to Canada. Our daughter moved to New York. And having that FaceTime is absolutely valuable.
It kept our family very close.
Kept our family very, very close. But what you're saying is, remember, just like anything else, it's a tool. And there's ways to use tools properly, and there's ways to use tools improperly. You can take a hammer and do everything with it. You can break things with it too if you're not using it properly, right? So what we're asking you to think about is, how can you use your phone, your computer, in today's world technology to create more respect mutually?
And we're going to spend, in our next episode, we're going to take a look very specifically at how whether we have children or not, we are all surrounded by that next generation that's coming up. Some of us in our places of employment have young people, and we're knocking our head against the wall as we're watching them try to struggle to fit into the work world. We're going to talk about how we get the next generation to understand respect, but I still want us to understand and define the fact that we have to put those screens down and we have to look at other people. I mean, I will ask the next question that I wanted to ask. How is respect a reflection of your character? Character being what describes you, who you are, who you want to be representing.
Your character is built on a foundation, right? So those foundation principles, those common core values of who you are as a person. Are you loving? Are you caring? Are you generous? And all the things that Colleen writes about in her book. Going back to the technology, in our real estate business, even last week, I used a Zoom call to help sellers in multiple states, siblings, sell a property here locally. But I had to respect the fact that I was in 3 different time zones. This family really needs our help and wants guidance. And so I had to give them respect. They had to see my face. They had to hear what I had to say. It was not demanding you listen to me, but how can I best serve you? And I think that's when we look at leadership principles we're going to be talking about, how can you be a servant leader so that you can lead with respect?
Well, and I think that's a big part of it. I mean, I think that one of the ways that it defines us, because, it kind of jumps to the next thing. So let's blend them together. For respect to show up, I believe we first have to respect ourselves.
Absolutely.
And so let's talk about that just a little bit, because then I think it kind of, the questions maybe should just have been one, because it does define our character. So one thing that Brian is very well known for is having integrity and respect well beyond many other people in the world. And I give him a lot of credit and respect for that. He's taught me that really, your character is defined by the things you say and the things you do. And if you say you're going to do it, do it. Okay. So that's, I think integrity is a piece of respect, but what you were just talking about is active listening, because that's a huge part of showing respect. When you actively listen, like when he had a client, whether it's your child, whether it's a coworker, and sometimes even to yourself, take the time to actively listen to the words being said. Because I think we all do this way too much, and he and I will do it with each other because we've become the unimind over time, because we've been married for 36 years and we were together for 3 years before that. And so
that's almost 40 years, people.
Yeah, we rely on each other, and we finish each other's sentences and such things. But therefore, one or the other of us is often thinking of what we want to respond with from the very first part of, in this training we were just in. I heard this and I was immediately like, blah, 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 blah. And what I needed to do to show him respect was hear his entire thoughts and then see if what I was going to share in response um, came together with that. So I think that one of the ways that we show our character is by being a really good listener, because listening is, I mean, would you agree?
I 100% agree with active listening. I think it's very important. I think another thing you need to really realize is words matter. Words matter. And so as you listen to this podcast and then you pick up on an idea or two that you can implement in your life, in your business, in your family today, think about how you're saying those words. Think about the connotations of those words, and think about the fact that you're being intentional with those words. Mm-hmm. So, for example, going back to what you said just a few minutes ago, when you talk about things that you said to your kids or your business partners, your family, we always told our kids, when you go outside our home, you represent the Susan name. People will talk about you in one way or the other. So as you represent yourself in the world, you will be representing our family. How do we change that to our employees? When you go out as an agent for my company and you go and you interact with buyers and sellers, you're going to be representing me and my company. When that Starbucks representative is handing you your personalized coffee that they have made just for you with your name on it, they're representing Starbucks, right? And I'm just putting Starbucks out there because we've never had a poor experience there, right? So whatever business you can talk about, you have representatives that reflect that business, both in their words and their deeds. And you respect that business based on the interactions with that business individual.
Absolutely. And I'm going to take that to the parenting piece too, because, there's times, and I share this in my, to want to know more, I mean, please feel free to pick up the book, but I think in our own experiences, we need to be the authority. Please don't get me wrong. I'm not saying be willy-nilly and loosey-goosey in your parenting. I'm very much about the fact that my role is not to be my kid's friend, but to be their parent. At the same time, though, if I want them to respectfully respond to me in a particular way, mm-hmm. I have to do it to them first. I have to show them respect and not treat Absolutely. Them like I don't think they have a brain and like I don't think that they can understand me or that I don't think they can be responsible. And when they feel like I respect their ability to whatever might be going on, to set the table, and of course there's training and correction, but I trust you if I ask you to set the table. If you disrespect me and walk away and don't do it, then we're going to have a conversation about why you didn't listen to me. But in the same way, if they've asked me to help them with something and I blow them off every single time, there's probably a little reciprocity going on there. They don't feel like respecting me because they don't feel respected. So you have to find that dynamic that's super important. So that would also be consistent and reliable. I think that's another thing about it. So we have active listening, which is important, yep. But consistency and reliability is huge because, how do you think those play into?
Well, so there's I can count on you if you can count on me, right? So that's once again that mutual respect. So in a real practical way for the young parents there that are starting out their career in parenting, right? And the kids are not putting away their toys. I don't know why. I've asked them once. So the choices are, how would you handle that situation if you wanted to have the kids put away their toys? What's one way you could approach that?
Oh, well, there's I always like to say to my kids, there's like 10 ways to do anything. But one of the ways is you create a reward system, mm-hmm. and you have, we talk about this in our choices chapter, but there's incentives and you make this choice and here's your reward for it. Congratulating them, just mm-hmm. encouraging them. One toy, play a game with them. Oh, I know why you're not doing it. You can't even get one toy in the basket. I can too. Okay, well, I guess you're gonna have to prove it to me. And then maybe you throw a toy in and then they throw a toy in. The idea is that you have a respectful interaction. Screaming at them louder and louder.
That does not work. That does not work. Give them choices that you want to have accomplished.
Screaming at them is not the way to get that done.
Do you want to put your toys away before you go outside to play? Or do you want to go outside to play and then put your toys away when you come back? So mm-hmm. those are ways to encourage.
And if you don't ever put those toys away tomorrow, you won't go outside to play, or those toys will be removed for a day. There's ways to do it that show respect, but it's consistency too. And it's always, if you say you're going to do it. And one example I can give is I know as a busy working mom, a teacher, and then I became a realtor with Brian. I've always been busy and working, but I have successful, healthy kids, and they show me respect back. There isn't a day that doesn't go by where one of them doesn't call me and check in with mom, even though they're grown up and far away. But that came from the fact that if I said, we're gonna go after lunch today on a Saturday, we'll go shopping, like I said. Now let's just say an important client situation came up, which comes up a lot in real estate.
Absolutely.
Instead of just saying, sorry, them's the breaks, I would say, okay, I'm so sorry that I have to not go shopping with you right now. But something else we've been wanting to do is you've been wanting to play that video game with me. And so since I can't give you this time now, I'm gonna give you this time this evening, and I promise you an hour of my time tonight to play your favorite video game or read a book with you or whatever your kid's into. The point with that is that there's a consistency. You say you're going to do it, and it's part of respect. You actually do it. That way, you can pull it back on them. And I mean, you can transfer this situation. This could be with a coworker. I'll take your shift for you this time.
Yeah.
And then in return, you take a shift for me. Whatever it is, it's having that consistency and fairness.
I think something that Colleen just said is really important. And she said that human beings are incentivized in different ways. And what she said, that there's lots of examples. So the example that she gave, I want you to recognize, was not punitive. So if you don't do this, you won't get that. So whether it's parenting or business or whatever it is, it's incentivized. So some people are incentivized by money. Some people are incentivized by winning. Some people are incentivized by a non-tangible reward, like an attaboy or a good job or a compliment. Some people are incentivized by appreciation. There's a lot of different ways.
Have to appreciate him, and all things are done.
There's a lot of ways to incentivize human beings. And when you think about the fact that we as humans like compliments, we like to be rewarded. There's motivating factors. And the way that you encourage people to act at their highest level of performance is to look and find ways that actually spins their wheel in a positive way, whether they're a child or an adult, someone that you're trying to raise and encourage or coach on a team or a business team. It doesn't really matter. All of it's the same. You just figure out what makes their wheels turn.
What makes their wheels turn. I like that. I'm gonna hold on to that one. I'm going to shift back a little bit to the self-respect piece, because I think something else that I want to talk about that helps with self-respect, all the things we've talked about, be an active listener, and then, expect listening and share that I would really like you to listen to this now. All those things can be turned around and reciprocated. Be reliable, and then expect reliability, and expect it because you respect yourself. Here's another one, and this has to do with a level of humility. I think a lot of people like to be, and this is really dating myself, to be the Fonz. Hey, we're going back to
Happy Days.
Happy Days. The Fonz could never say, I'm
wrong.
He could not say the word wrong because he never wanted to admit his mistakes.
Wrong. Yeah.
Okay, our kids look at us really weird when we talk about old TV shows like that. But here's the bottom line: we have to be able to apologize when we've been the one to make the mistake, because through that apology, we are showing humility, and we are taking ownership, and we're respecting the person we wronged. It can be a major thing or a minor thing. On a business team, it could be that you made a prediction, or you said you'd do something and you didn't either do it to everyone's expectations, or you dropped the ball and didn't. Don't try to pin it on everyone else. Respect yourself enough and respect the team enough to say, I dropped that ball, but here's how I'll fix it. Obviously, you have to have solutions to your problems, whole nother mantra. But the bottom line is we respect ourselves when we have humility, and we offer that out to people. Right. But we also need to expect it back. It's okay in a kind way and not being a total pain in the backside about it. But I'll hold my ground. I had to learn how. I used to be being a whole lot more snippy, but I'll just look at him and, okay, I'll take your apology when you're ready. And by doing so, I'm saying I'm going to respect, myself and make sure that I get that. And then there's one more.
Okay, here we go.
That I really want to throw at you. And this is both a part of self-respect and the respect of others. Here's a big one that people just don't do anymore, and that is boundaries.
Boundaries are so important.
He had no idea what was going to come out of my mouth. He's like, okay, spit it out, one.
So a line in the sand, a line in the sand. Here's where my yes stops and my no begins, right? And so that line in the sand has been kind of kicked around quite a bit, where that line is moving all around all the time. They call it moving the goalpost today. And you got to decide what your line in the sand is, the things that you won't cross. And in our family, in our business, we have actually taught both our children and our colleagues that there are hard and fast values that you won't cross. So, for example, telling a lie, where you know it's absolutely wrong, what you're going to say out loud is not right, is misleading, it's not the truth. That's a line that you can't cross. So you got to tell the truth, because you know what, everyone, the truth is easy to remember.
Yeah, right? That's a big one. And I think that boundaries in your time. Okay, it's okay to say, and we said this in one of the last episodes. Brian, what's a complete sentence? The word
no is a complete sentence.
And I remember in one of our episodes about being transparent in your authentic self, we talked about boundaries, and here it comes up again in respect. For self-respect, you have to know how much do you have in you each day, and it's
called bandwidth today, or capacity.
Well, yesterday would be one of those days for us.
Yep.
We intended to record this podcast on our little business calendar where we've got all kinds of things filled in.
Yeah.
We had down yesterday to record this episode, but we've been busy. We've been in a class. We have some real estate transactions going on. We just had a lot going on, and we looked at one another when it came
very busy afternoon.
Yeah, and when it came time for just where we slotted in the afternoon that we were going to do this podcast, we both just looked at each other and went, yeah, it won't come out very well. Because we knew that we had boundaries to set. We had to take some time and take a deep breath. Those are the kinds of boundaries I'm talking about. They're not always, about huge earth-shattering truths, but it's just, if you understand, if you respect yourself enough to understand that you are able to do something or not able to do something. Sometimes it's not connecting with a friend, because you're not in the headspace where you're going to be kind when you're with them, or you're going to make great choices while you're out with them, and be able to establish some boundaries around yourself. And then in turn, what about expecting, how do we treat the boundaries of others?
We want to respect their boundaries too, right? So at the end of the day, if you have something planned that maybe you need to pin in at a date and those kinds of things, it's very, very important. I also want you to recognize this, is that we're Gen Xers, and our prior generation is the baby boomers, right? And then you have the millennials, and then you have the Gen Zs and alphas. And every generation has different characteristics, right?
Absolutely.
So in our generation, it was, can I work 2 jobs, 3 jobs? Can I work overtime? Can I continue to work nonstop? Can I work 12 hours, 15 hours a day? Can I go to college and put myself through and sleep for 3 hours? I'm talking from personal experience, right? And the idea of burnout came along, and we didn't even know that burnout was an actual thing until later on we recognized, that's probably unhealthy. So
then the next generation has, and for my millennial listeners, hopefully you can chuckle at yourself, because you're chuckling at us because we represent mostly like your parents.
Yeah.
You guys have embraced the polar opposite of that.
Absolute opposite. And
we're
then
going to enjoy our lives, and we're going to chill out, and we're going to make sure we have our vacations, and we're going to travel and work from our vacations. And those Generation Xers are like, what?
So realize that if you think, well, I'm an exception or I'm alone, there are some characteristics that are indicative of your generation.
That's
simply
true.
By the social events that have happened in your lifetime, the technology that's been in place in your lifetime, and this is a fast moving world, and
right.
We all try to remember Mayberry, but that's not the case of today. The world's moving at a very fast pace, especially with AI and all those things that are going to be affecting our lives. Colleen mentioned that you need to have self-respect, and so understanding that you have boundaries is very, very important. And so planning time for your self-health, for your self-worth, for your business, for your family time, for your time with your friends, for time for self-improvement is really time blocking and being intentional with your self-care.
It is. And time blocking is I'm not even sure it's one of the mantras, but I'll probably somewhere along the line do an
Bonus
episode about
feature.
it. Yeah, it'll be a bonus episode somewhere in
Yeah.
the future because it's how I survive a busy schedule, and it's so very vital.
Lab school's available for that.
Because it allows you to set all kinds of boundaries, yet have a lot of freedom. And I agree with that. And I think that really, as we've been hanging out here for about half an hour, and I always like to keep an eye on the time and not keep people too long. We're gonna, as you can tell, there's so much to talk about when we talk about respect. And in our coming episodes, we're gonna take a look at how we share that with the next generation. We're gonna take a look at specifically how respect leads, or how leadership comes from a person of respect, and how we share that out. It's just, and how really, truly, I believe that respect can change the world if we begin to. And it's that pebble in the water. When you toss it, it has that rippling effect and it goes outwards.
Yeah.
And I believe that we always touch about three people for every person. For ourselves, we affect about 3 people deep. And I think it's super important that if we can embrace this idea of leaving the world around us better than we found it, having respect, we're going to empower the spaces in our world with far more positive adoration, due regard. And I think that that's super important. So here's my challenge. You can download this and share this episode if you enjoy it. Take a look at the last set of 4 that were all about being our true authentic self. Tune in as we continue to look at respect for the next few episodes. If you're watching us on YouTube, you can you can subscribe, you can
make a comment.
Please comment down below, because we'd love to hear what you have to say.
What's the best way to show respect?
Yeah, what do you think the best way to show respect is? Mm-hmm. And I always like to leave with a challenge. And the challenge that I want to leave you with is kind of twofold this week. I want you to become aware, just pay attention to the places where you see disrespect, because like Brian said, it's easier to identify that, or find yourself leaning toward a disrespectful attitude. And then in turn, I want you to seek places where you see respect, and places where you tend to be the most respectful, or are very comfortable being respectful, because identification of it, and that's kind of what we talked about today, really is the first step to making sure that value is embedded in who you are. So I encourage you to go to livingbythemantras.com. We have all the links available here. You can order the book, you can see the other podcasts, and we really look forward to seeing you next time.
Remember that today we talked about living by the mantras, and the key is leaving things better than you found it. But if you don't like that mantra, make up your own.
Yeah.
What's your mantra?
What's your mantra? We use that one in our world.
Yep.
And if it doesn't work for you, but something else makes you think of respect, put that in front of yourself. Put it on a Post-it note. Write it across the mirror in a dry erase marker. Put it on the refrigerator with a magnet. And tell yourself on a daily basis to show respect in the world around you. So we appreciate you. I'm trying to give you a high five. There's my man. All right. And we'll see you soon.
See you soon.
Bye.
Bye.